Right, we are recording. Okay, so you pick your start point and then we hope the needle holders are strong enough. And then we put in initially a figure of 8. Stitch to anchor the whole process. So second bite close to the first bite, and then doesn't matter, hand tie, instrument tie. And the beauty with Duramesh, as everybody that uses it knows, is you don't need to rip it tight through the tissues. You get better ingrowth of collagen by just tying it snug but not tight. And then I always find 8 to 12 throws anchors it nicely, and then we start the mattress suture. So this would be our parastomal hernia, or if we're reinforcing a primary hernia incision, we're then going to aim for 5 to 10 millimeter bites, or 5 to 10 millimeter progress around the circumference, and then 5 to 10 millimeter bites through the entirety of the muscle and fascia layers. But obviously the skin is not included in this part of the process. And then we are going to do a mattress repair. So we come back through our loop, and what that does is encourages the Duramesh to lie along the edge of the hernia or stomal defect. So, and then we continue our progression. I don't want our bites to be too big. And then once we get going, it naturally sits in a position to perform an ongoing mattress repair. And as you can see, that allows, and it causes the Duramesh to lie nicely along the stomal opening, and each time through the loop, pull the Duramesh through. And if we're dealing with a big parastomal hernia where we've got a much bigger defect, each of these bites can be pulled a little bit tighter, and that shrinks the defect down. If we're just reinforcing a primary stoma, a new opening, then they can just sit snug rather than tightening the defect. And through our loop, so we continue our mattress. And as we can see, we get the reinforcement around, and we get the suture lying along the edge of the what would be the muscle layer. And therefore we're getting the benefit of mesh reinforcement on the edge of the stomal opening. When I first did this, I was concerned that it may cut into the bowel, but once it's in position, it became very apparent very quickly that, as per when you're handling the material, it is actually very soft once it's in position, unlike a lot of suture materials that feel very hard and sharp when they're in position. This maintains the softness of the material, so there's no sharp cutting edge to the repair work. And we then just progress on, continuing to lay that mattress suture. And because we're going inside to outside, it naturally brings the Duramesh directly into line with the muscle edge. Plus we're getting, you can see if I tilt up, you're getting the strands of Duramesh reinforcing the full thickness of the muscle layer. So we'll carry on around so I can demonstrate the next bit of the technique. We'll just come round to our start point. Slightly easier on human tissues. There's the needle. There's quite a lot of friction, but that's all okay. Just going to move my model rather than move around my patient. Just trying to keep everything even. There's 5 millimeters of depth, 1 centimeter progressions, just to keep symmetry to the repair. To keep the Duramesh sitting nicely in contact with all the tissues. So, yeah, nearly back at the beginning. That's good. And then we'll bring that through close to our initial point where we anchored. That's good. So that's showing a complete ring. And then we can just join those together. Again, this is not for structural integrity, this is just to hold that first run of tissue, the first run of stitches in the position we want. So we've got reinforcement at centimetre intervals. You can see there, and then we've got a ring of mesh reinforcement around the edge of the stomal orifice. Now, the bit of this repair that works well for parastomal hernias is that if we've had a big defect, or we've gone round once and we've closed it a little, you can keep on going round. My record to date is 6 times round. So what I would do then is take my next bite, coming between the last layer, but taking slightly bigger bite of tissue and coming back around and carrying on with the same mattress repair. In between the last 2, 1 so we don't pick up the Duramesh and lock it, and 2 so that we get more mesh into more tissue. And then we just keep on progressing around. And what this does is get more mesh into the tissue, but even on this model you can see it's now holding the Duramesh right up against the muscle edge. You're getting more Duramesh, you're getting a lattice work to reinforce. And if you have got that big defect, I've managed to reduce down a 15 to 16 centimeter diameter parastomal defect down to a 3 centimeter defect. And it has had an absolutely perfect outcome on a very troublesome parastomal hernia in a patient post-cystectomy who was getting lots of episodes of bowel obstruction in and out of hospital, and a football-sized hernia which is now repaired and functioning beautifully. So you can adjust the depth that you take to take up more tissue to concertina it in, and the tissues around a parastomal hernia tend to be quite attenuated and weak, but you don't have to take big bites of tissue, you can take relatively small bites. And then once you get to a point such as this, position to take, and then start another Duramesh, just tie it off here and carry on round, and then keep on progressing. And as you go, you get more and more Duramesh reinforcing the ring of tissue. There's more of it in the tissues themselves. So, and that solid ring going round. This peritonealizes incredibly quickly. We've been back into 2 patients for various other reasons who've had this done, and within 3 months you can't see the Duramesh. You can feel it, you can see the structural integrity, but it incorporates and peritonealizes perfectly. And you can just keep on doing this, going round and round and round. If you need, usually it takes 2 or 3 times round and you've got a lovely repair, but you can do 5 or 6 times round, and I think that then demonstrates how it then holds the circumferential strand of the mattress repair directly up against the tissue, so it's not free floating to cut into the bowel. There's no sharp feel to it. It sits there nicely, and the bowel comes through, and there's no risk of cutting in. The knots sit nicely, so very straightforward.